everyone, it's Chris. Today I have a card to share that is made with the brand new Gina K Designs StampTV kit, Fruit of the Season. I got this kit last week as a gift from Gina and I became absolutely obsessed with this apple that is one of the images in this kit. The kit has many different stamps and this is the one that I absolutely became obsessed with. And as you can see, when you stamp this apple, I'm using my original MISTI here. I'm going to stamp this apple in lipstick. And you can see that it's really pretty as it is. It has a lot of detail. And you could stamp it and leave it just the way it is. But today I want to show you a little trick on how to kind of kick these apples just up a notch. So I have stamped 6 apples, 6 different colors. I used lipstick, Dusty Rose, Red Hot, Bubblegum Pink, Red Velvet, and Apple Mint. And now I'm going to do a little bit of inking. I am using these blending brushes. These are absolutely fabulous ink blending brushes. They are from Picket Fence Studios and they are called life-changing brushes for good reason. They are so soft and fluffy and they are lovely for inking. So that's what I'm using to add ink to my apples. I am bringing in some apple mint ink to each of these apples and I'm just kind of dragging it, kind of pouncing a little bit of the ink off first and then just dragging it across the top of the apple. And now I'm going to add some grass green, especially to this green apple down here in the lower right. I want to give it a little bit of shadow towards the edge, a lower edge of that apple. I'm trying to not cover the entire apple. I want to have some white space or very close to white showing through. And I'm bringing some of that darker green on most of these too. When you pick an apple, it's not always 100% red or 100% green. There's always some variation of color in there. So I'm just bringing in a little bit of extra color using these brushes. Now I'm going to bring in some wild dandelion and just a little bit of that hint of that yellow. I did kind of tap off, kind of pounce some of that ink off right away first because I want this very faint. And I'm just bringing a little bit of the yellow to most of those apples. I did not add any yellow to the green apple. And now on these red apples, I want to deepen the color on those as well. So I am bringing in some red velvet to all of them, even the ones that I started with pink, because those are going to really deepen that color, give it a little bit of more shape and shadow to that edge of the apple. And it kind of brightens up that color. And you can see that you're kind of making a mess onto this piece of the Gina K white, heavyweight white, but you can still see the main image. So I'm going to trim these out with scissors. Now I'm even deepening the color even further using some cherry red. And that really starts building the dimension of the apple. I know it kind of looks like a hot mess right now, but once you trim these out, you'll see what I mean. And you can still see, even on that darkest, the second one down on the left, you can still see the outline of that apple. So don't be afraid to just brush in that color. And even though it kind of gets a little gray and muddy looking, once we finish these up, you're going to see how differently they are going to look when you add some embossing. Now I'm adding some white gel pen. I'm using a Signo Uniball, just a white gel pen, and I'm kind of just sketching in towards the top, giving it a little bit of shape and dimension, a little highlight to just the top upper edge of the apples. And I'm just kind of drawing in just some little lines, and then I'm just using my finger to smudge them down along the shape of the apple. That's going to just give a little bit of extra shine and highlight to the lighter edges of this apple and kind of help enhance the shape of it, or at least the perceived shape of my flat object here. And I'm going to do this to all 6 of the apples, just drawing along the edge, upper edge, and then just kind of smudging, smearing that ink downward. And that's just going to help define the shape of the apple. And you can do quite a bit of shading or highlighting here, I should say, or very little, or you don't have to add any at all, but you can see that it does really change the look of the apple. I'm going to add just a little bit more here, just a little extra shine. And even on the green, you can see how that changes, kind of just bringing in a lot of that highlight right in the center. Now I'm going to color the stems. Right now the stems are pretty much pink or red. So I'm using a Copic marker. This is E25, and I'm just kind of very lightly coloring the left side, mostly the left edge of that stem, just to give it a little bit of that darker brown color. It's kind of a mid-tone brown. And then I'm going to go back with my white gel pen, and I'm just going to draw a really simple line on the right side of each of the stems as just a little bit of a highlight to the stem as well. And then also just kind of smudging that in so it's not a sharp line. And it really does give some dimension, and once we emboss these, you'll see how this changes. Right now they look a little bit dull, but the embossing is going to really make those colors get bright and shiny and really pretty. So now the next part is to cut them out. I'm going to just hand trim those out with my scissors. And the nice thing about apples is that they're not always perfectly shaped, so don't be afraid to just, cut them the shape that you want them to be. They don't have to be perfectly round, or you don't have to follow the lines completely, so just go for it. One trick for cutting, fussy cutting your images is to try to turn the paper as you're cutting. It makes it a lot simpler. You get a lot nice, smoother, rounder edges. So there is my first apple, and I am going to cut out the rest, and here they are. Now the next step is to heat emboss these. So here is a little trick. I'm using some thin washi tape, and I'm making just a little tab, and I am sticking it to the back side of each of my apples, and that is going to help me hold on to the apple when I am heat embossing. So on each of my 6 apples here, I have adhered a little piece of tape, and I'm going to bring out my clear embossing powder. Using Versamark ink, I am just smushing that whole apple into the Versamark and then dipping it right into my clear embossing powder. I'm going to do all 6 of these. Just get that out of the way here. So very carefully, just smushing them in there and then setting them down. And now make sure you use a good craft tweezers or something to hold on to these apples, because they are going to get very hot and you don't want to be holding right next to them. So I'm using my Wagner heat tool, and I am just melting that embossing powder. I'm going to get it nice and hot, and I'm going to re-dip it into my clear embossing powder while it is wet and hot and liquid, and I am just going to dunk it right back into that embossing powder, and I'm going to reheat it a second time so it's really thick and smooth and very glossy. So the same thing, just heat. When it gets nice and hot and wet, you just throw it back into the embossing powder, and that's what's nice about this little washi tab that I have too. It sure makes it easy to avoid the heat on your fingers and to keep your fingertips from dipping into the embossing powder as well. So you can see how these apples have really gotten brighter in color and very shiny and just lots of fun. They are perfect little embellishment for a card. You can put a whole pile of them in a basket and do some fun fall cards. I have made a whole bunch of them, and I am going to be using these for place cards, probably for my Thanksgiving dinner. So here are the 6 that I made today, and I've been playing with these for days, so I have several more that I have done earlier. So feel free to give this a try, play with all kinds of different colors. I really like the yellow apples as well. So have fun and have a great day. Bye-bye.